In this video, we're going to be looking at whether you should be bidding on your competitor's brand name in a bid to win new clients. Bid to win new clients. The road leading to bidding on someone else's brand usually starts in one of two ways. The first one is that you found a competitor bidding on your brand name and you're out for revenge. The second one is someone's heard that bidding on brand names is a good strategy and they decide to roll it out from the get-go. Now, we've worked over 100 B2B Google ad accounts and we've seen competitor brand bidding play out in every which way. So in this video, I'm going to go through whether I think brand bidding is a good idea, and if so, what different types of brand bidding there are, and whether or not it's going to be a good fit for your company. Now, before we get into whether or not it's a good idea, we need to break down the different types of keywords at a broader level. Now, the first one is information keywords. And as the name suggests, that's people looking for more information. This is your when, what's, whys, where's, who's, how's of Google searches. And at this point in time, the person in your target audience market searching for this may not be even aware that they have a problem or that there is a solution out there to fix that problem. Now, these info terms aren't going to be something we go too much into today, and I'll get on to why in a minute. The next are navigational keywords, and these are pretty much for people to know exactly where they want to go, and they're just using Google search or another search engine as an intermediary to get there because they can't be bothered to type in .com or .co.uk, or they've forgotten the name of the domain from the top of their head, so they type it into search engines. Finally, we have commercial keywords, and these are non-branded keywords which have what we call high intent, which means someone's either looking to fix a problem or they're looking for a specific unbranded solution. This is where the majority of performance marketing plays out, so it can be a very competitive space. So I'm going to go through these different types of keywords and how they play a part in competitive bidding, and how you can make sure you reference these types of keywords before deciding if you should actually start doing competitive bidding. Now, the first one, like I mentioned, was info content. I'm not going to go too much into that when talking about competitive bidding because that person already is typing in a brand name. So we're going to assume they're past that info search stage. Now, if we go to navigational, let's go on to search and show an example. A navigational term will be a term like just typing in HubSpot or HubSpot login. And as we can see here, we have companies actually bidding on the term HubSpot, which I would call navigational. And in 99.9% of cases of accounts we've seen, if you're just bidding on a single term from especially a highly searched competitor like HubSpot, you're not going to get many conversions off the back of that because the person's literally just looking to log in. They're most likely a customer. And if you're bidding to get in front of them, even if they do click on your landing page and fill out a form, they may be confused why they filled out a form on someone that isn't HubSpot. And what we've seen in many CRM feedback loops and what we've seen in many different cases is people will get leads through and be like, oh, sorry, no, I filled out the wrong form. I was actually looking for HubSpot. If you're just bidding on a brand name, it doesn't really work out that well for the person who's doing that. And what we can see here is Pipedrive, Business Software, all of these companies are just bidding on brand name. And I'd probably bet quite a lot of money that the amount of money they're spending on these terms, just as a single keyword and a navigational term, they're probably not getting the ROI on that. And they're probably leveraging this tactic for different reasons, which I'll get onto in a minute. This is the same with, like I mentioned, HubSpot login. Now, one that's kind of navigational and one that's almost hitting commercial would be pricing. Again, I still think this is navigational because someone's decided that they want to look at pricing for HubSpot, but they're not quite sure maybe yet if they're actually going to go with HubSpot. Now, again, you can see the likes of Pipedrive and Business Software are bidding on this term as well. I'd say this one sits just between navigational and commercial. And the way in which this could be really good is if you're looking at bidding on competitors that have really high pricing. So say, for example, if HubSpot was tens of thousands of pounds a month, which it's not for a starter package, we could say that we actually want to bid on pricing because someone may decide that HubSpot's going to be too expensive. So we may try and slip in and say, value prop is the fact that we're actually really cost effective. So if that's your value prop, then bidding on this term could be quite good, but it's definitely going to be a business case versus just blanket bidding on this for any company at all. Now, the ones that you really want to go and bid on, what I'd call commercial terms, and even though they have a brand name, what we're looking at is things like HubSpot Alternative, for example. Now, HubSpot Alternative, I'd call that a commercial because if you think about the buyer intent and the mind of the buyer and the psychology at that point in time, they know they've benchmarked what it is and they've positioned what they're looking for, which will probably be a CRM system or support software or one of the modules which HubSpot offers. And we've got Zendesk down here, for example. And then we also have the likes of Pipedrive, for example, who seem like they're bidding on absolutely everything. And one of the big things to think about when you're looking to bid on competitor brands would be, does it have a modifier? If it has brand name plus modifier, is that modifier indicative of intent? Are they looking for that solution, or have they positioned themselves perfectly to say, I'm in the market for something, but I want to move away from HubSpot, or I want to find an alternative to HubSpot because I'm not happy with their pricing or their customer support or what I've heard. So bidding on terms like alternative, or terms like, for example, versus, so HubSpot versus Salesforce or Dynamics, or just versus, for example, we can see his index coming up again, which is going to be quite potentially a good term for them. I'm not sure how well, obviously, it's going to convert for help desk software. You've got to look at the modifier, and if the modifier is indicative of intent, then I'd say it's definitely worth trying. But in a lot of cases, if you're a small company and going up against big competitors who have got lots of funding, I probably wouldn't be bidding just solely on their brand name and navigational terms, because it's going to be an easy way to burn through a lot of budget without having very much to show. Like any marketing strategy and tactics, there's going to be some variables which take place which may change your mind in how you approach it. And the first one is going to be the size of your budget. For example, Pipedrive may have an unlimited pot of money and they just want to bid on HubSpot, even in a navigational term, because the thing they're looking for is just to have that one extra touch point to get their brand awareness or their brand touch point in front of someone every time they log into HubSpot, for hopefully one day gaining that recognition to be able to position themselves as an alternative in their mind, whether it be consciously or subconscious for the user. Now, in my opinion, this is a very expensive way to create brand awareness. And if I had a big budget for paid search, for example, and I was using the surplus of that just to bid on navigational competitor terms, I'd probably say that it's much better spent somewhere else, like LinkedIn ads, for example, because ultimately I can think of a much better way to generate awareness and positive brand identity and sort of share a voice in a consumer's mind than doing it through this type of search. So definitely for a big brand, you see it a lot, but for smaller brands, if you've got a limited budget and you're going after big competitors, I definitely wouldn't start bidding on their brand names as a way to drive an ROI, because you're not going to see it 9 times out of 10. You may get lucky with a few, but I wouldn't say it's a scalable and a repeatable strategy where you'd see consistent results. The second one, I'd say it would be a type of company. In a lot of industries, competitive bidding is probably going to be the minority of your budget, because there's going to be a lot of non-branded commercial search terms which you can go after and start optimizing your campaigns and landing pages around in order to start driving consistent pipeline for your business. It depends on your industry, but for example, if you're in a legacy industry or an industry that's been around for a while, you're probably going to have a lot of search term, and like I mentioned, it's only going to be a small piece of the puzzle in which you can test competitor brand bidding, primarily with that modifier, hopefully, so you're not throwing away too much money. But for example, if you're in a new emerging market, primarily in the tech space, which is quite a new to world product, then what you may find, it isn't going to be a lot of bottom of funnel commercial terms, which means you're going to have to rely on brand bidding slightly more. It's a slightly bigger pot of your budget, because people may be very familiar with your competitors and you actually want to get in front of these people because it's the best search engine marketing strategy for you guys to bid on alternatives or versus, or actually benchmarking yourself against these other players in the space. It's going to be a case by case on the company, the industry, the budgets, the objectives of the campaigns. But in my opinion, and from what we've seen across all the accounts, and even looking at previous data from all of these accounts across millions and millions of pounds of ad spend, brand bidding, especially ones which are navigational terms, have never worked. And if you've got competitors who are bidding just on your brand, you can see on the auction report with inside Google Ads, I wouldn't worry too much. I potentially would still bid on your own brand name because you get that from pennies on the pound to be able to get people through. But what I would do is set up scripts to say as soon as they've stopped bidding on your brand name, you then stop bidding on your brand name as well, so you can save money, and then you can see all of that traffic anyway flow through your organic channels. And in one of my next videos, I'm going to be showing and breaking down how you can use these scripts to actually trigger for you, so you haven't got to go in and do it manually. If you're interested in that type of video, hit the subscribe button. Any questions, whack them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it, and speak to you very soon.